Thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies as we continue with Part 2 of Fundamental Laws, a report of the 68th Convocation of the Rose+croix Order by R. Swinburne Clymer. Concerning the lectures, as before stated, many of the lectures were only for those of the inner circle who were present, and those were all delivered by the Master of the Sacred College of Buffalo, New York. Mr. Charles C. Brown, the Order considers as one of its most untiring workers, one who has labored in his native city for many years, and through his untiring efforts it has been made possible to organize 4 large classes in that one city, classes which meet on different days of each week and which meet the requirements of students in different stages of development. Within the near future, it is proposed to open some of these classes under the authority of the Sacred College to the people of the city so that eugenics, scientific child culture, and other important subjects of like nature may be taught to the people at large. All of this work in Buffalo will be under the supervision of Mr. Brown and his assistant, Mrs. Charles K. Morey, of the Kansas City College, and its able master, A.W. Witt, and his assistant, Mrs. A.W. Witt. Not much need be said, as they had charge of the lectures, and their lectures, given in the present work, speak for themselves. One of the lectures delivered, and which is of great importance not alone to occult students or students of the mystic, but to all true Americans, is that concerning the Great Seal of the United States and its mystic indications. For, just as soon as these things come to pass, then shall the eagle soar over all things, and America will be the mistress of the world, though she will not rule through either arms or politics, but by love and wisdom. The other article by the same author is the Code of Ethics, which is given in full. All true educators have come to understand that if the public school system is to be retrained in the United States, then it will be absolutely necessary for the complete Code of Ethics to be taught to all scholars, and the Illuminati is the first great school of thought that has ever attempted to formulate such a Code of Ethics. Naturally, the code as given is but a bare outline of the work, but it is sufficient to give an idea to all mankind as to what the Illuminati has attempted to do for young America. And it will not stop in merely suggesting the teaching of such ethics, but it will fight for the adoption of such a code in the schools. The Illuminati will give mind and body the last drop of blood in their fight for a better educational system, a greater care of the children, so that these children shall not continue to become victims of that class of humanity which comes to near utter depravity. The slogan of the Illuminati shall be, "Save the children of our glorious country. Give them wisdom so that they may be able to look after their own protection." Cannot all true men and women in our country say amen to this? The second article, which was given by Mrs. A.W. Witt, is that on sin, and has to do with the conception of sin, or wrongdoing as we of the secret schools understand it. The third article, prepared by Dr. Ira L. Kepperling, with the help of Mr. Charles Wolf of Kansas City, Missouri, is on reincarnation, and is a subject of supreme importance to all people. Once this law is understood, much of sin and wrong will pass away, and right doing take the place of wrongdoing. The third paper, on evolution, by the same authors, is also of extreme importance, for it is through evolution, reinforced by conscious development, that the race must be quickly improved. I venture to say that if the last few pages of this lecture were heeded by all men, the world would become a paradise within a few generations. The article on initiation by Mr. A.W. Witt is of extreme importance just at this time, because it clearly states and explains what true and real initiation is. This is of utmost importance just at this time, when we find that no less than 5 different orders calling themselves Rosicrucian have sprung up within the last few years, and not one of these 5 have a shred of the true Rosicrucian teachings. Some of them are deliberate frauds claiming to be what they are not, while others are clearly under the guidance of members of the Black Brotherhood, and their doctrines are absolutely destructive in that they uphold practices which are too abominable to even mention. One of these orders, claiming to be Rosicrucian, admits that it has no teachings, that it is all ceremonies, when history tells us clearly that the Rose-Croix Order was founded with the idea of leading men to their higher selves. In other words, while the Rose-Croix has its ceremonial initiation, its foundation is upon a training school for souls, and its ceremonies are but secondary. The lecture on the second coming of Christ is also of great importance at a time when many false Christs are put forth for the people to kneel down before, when in fact most of these are not only false Christ, but are of the lower grade of humanity in as far as either evolution or development is concerned. Mr. Witt clearly points out what that Christ is and how he must come to all of us individually if he is to come at all. Authority versus Individuality by Mr. Witt is also one of great importance, though it must not be understood that the Rose-Croix School is against authority, such as is held by church, state, or institutions. For we clearly uphold the idea and doctrine that so long as society exists, it must be governed by those who are chosen to govern it, and we do not in any sense desire to destroy authority, but rather to uphold it. However, we are also a school of individuals and believe that the personality of the individual should be changed, transmuted, developed into an absolute conscious individuality. Thus, the community would be a community of conscious individuals, but ruled by one supreme head who also had become a conscious individual. Egypt in its glory is an example of this state of society and government, for at the time none could be ruler over Egypt except an initiate who had also been crowned as king or ruler. Reincarnation by Miss Witt considers this extremely interesting and important subject from another standpoint than that considered by Dr. Kepperling and Mr. Wolf, and this standpoint is as important as that taken or considered by the brothers. Prayer is a subject thought to be so well known that no consideration is ever given it. But is it an understood subject? I think not, for I believe that the masses are totally ignorant of the meaning of true prayer, or what is the power of true prayer. This subject is therefore a timely one in an age when there is no longer any faith in the efficiency of prayer. The article on body, mind, soul, and spirit was one of the last lectures to be delivered. This paper became necessary about a year ago, when we found that but very few of even the advanced students understood the difference between spirit and soul, using the terms interchangeably. We hope that in this article the difference is made clear, and that by referring to the article, A Soul Science Primer and the Great Seal of the United States, this subject will be fully understood. Invocations of the Hierarchs by the same author as the last article mentioned might well be called the higher form of prayer, since it is really prayer as understood by the masters, but little understood by the vast multitude of those who consider themselves students of the mysteries. It deserves careful consideration. In fact, is receiving careful consideration, as we find that many of the inner students who are building their own homes are setting aside a room in the house and are modeling it for this very purpose. This article therefore deserves the most careful consideration, as it is of the utmost importance to every sincere student. The lecture, The Fraternal Sons of Osiris, deserves more than passing attention. It was prepared in 1906 by HOA under the instructions of the masters and was then but a prophecy. In 1908, it was printed in booklet form and copyrighted under the title Immortality or External Death. This was the second step. The third and highest step, for there are always 3 steps in everything that shall continue to live, was when the degrees of the first temple were conferred upon the delegates in the Grove of Osiris, which had been especially prepared for this very purpose, and which is the first and only grove of its kind in the world at this time. we are especially pleased of the happy culmination of this work at this time, for the reason that all its work had been kept secret, so secret in fact that no one thought enough of it to steal the titles as used by the order, and this had been in the minds of those who had the work in hand, knowing well that if they had made the work as prominent as they had made the work of the Rose+croix orders, members of the Black Brotherhood would as deliberately steal the name and palm off something which had not the slightest right to the title under that name. But now, after the successful issue of the work, after men from many parts of the world had taken part in the sacred ceremonies, we felt at liberty to proclaim the work to the world. Before this volume will be ready for delivery, another convocation will be in session, as the work of the Black Orders has made this necessary so that we might protect the true work, and in due time a complete record of this second convocation will be ready for those deeply enough interested to desire it. Before closing this preface, I will comply with the request of several who had not the pleasure of being with us and give an outline of a day at Beverly Hall. Those in the hall are at liberty to arise at any hour they desire, avoiding, however, disturbing those who desire to rest, as nearly every student has been taught the desirability of taking the morning cup of hot water in order to cleanse the system of impurities, and for the purpose of building healthy functions. Hot water is served in the large sitting room at exactly 7 o'clock. Between this service and breakfast there is 1 hour, as breakfast is called at 8 o'clock. No student in the hall is supposed to enter either the dining room or the kitchen, any more than those in the kitchen are supposed to enter the private bedroom of a student unless especially invited to do so. Breakfast for the student is a very simple matter, as we hold that breakfast does man but little good, but much harm. Usually breakfast for the student consists of either a weak tea without tannin and dried toast, or wheat cocoa and dry toast. Every student present is supposed to obey the rule of the house. They can, if they wish, ask for other food, but their marks of grade progress, record of which is held by the master, is according to the manner in which they harmonize themselves with the rules of the order. Nothing being forbidden the student, nothing refused him, but his or her marks being made according to the harmony as expressed by his or her acts. After breakfast, an hour of rest, when social chats may be held, notes compared, walks taken. At 10 o'clock, lectures are called and all are supposed to be present, and must be present unless there is some good excuse for not being present. After the lecture, there is another hour of rest, the noon meal being called at 12 o'clock. No meat is ever used at the dining hall during convocation time, and a noon meal may therefore consist of whole wheat muffins and butter, asparagus with cream dressing, tomatoes usually sliced with a wine vinegar dressing, baked potatoes. Simplicity rules here. The master of the hall orders all meals, and these are in absolute correct portion to assure strength to the body and mind and purity to the blood, as well as the necessary material for building of a healthy mind and an illuminated soul. We hold with many of the highest medical authorities in the world that more people die from starvation because of overfeeding than do from underfeeding. We aim at the hall to have sufficient but not too much. We find that many people are weak, ill-nourished, underfed, weak-minded, neurasthenic because of eating too much food. This we try to correct and demand that students obey the rules of the house. If we find that someone present is not in harmony with the laws, then he or she is given the liberty of bidding goodbye to the rest of the guests. In the afternoon, there is another session at which 1 or more lectures are given. Following that, there is a time for a walk before dinner, and when fair, it is found that all students desire this walk. Dinner is a simple affair, possibly consisting of soup, eggplants, these being the meats of the vegetable kingdom, salads, some kind of pulse. No drink of whatever kind is allowed at either the noon or evening meal, as we hold that it destroys perfect digestion. No desserts. After the evening meal, there is an hour of rest, after which the master of the house may take charge and answer questions, or explain some of the divine laws. Arguments are not allowed, because of the fact that the student who asks a question is naturally not supposed to know the answer, and is supposed to accept the solution of the question. Such solution being always in harmony with the divine law as taught by the secret schools. Time for retiring is at 9 o'clock, as we hold to the old law that man gets his most perfect sleep before midnight, while the best time to arise in the morning is with the sun. All students are supposed to obey the rules of the house absolutely. If they are unable to do this for the short space of 1, 2, or 4 weeks, the teacher certainly cannot have faith in them that they will obey the rules and teachings of the sacred instructions for the time they are away. Moreover, the rating of the student will be according to his obedience while at the hall, and his advancement will be in accordance with his obedience and the spirit shown in his obedience. Thou hast been faithful in few things, I will make thee master of many, has direct bearing in this work. Moreover, the student in the mystic holds himself somewhat above the average person. But is he above the average person if he has not learned to obey the divine law in spite of what his own little personality might desire or wish him to do or to receive? Oh yes, admittedly we find some who wish to be catered to, who desire special notice, and who, not receiving it, feel deeply grieved. But those are in the minority, and those are of the self. It seems that the very hardest thing to overcome, the greatest enemy the student has, is his little self. Thus we find that out of every 10 students who come to the hall, there are 2 or 3 whose bugbear is this same self. And how do we know this? Because these students watch every move of those in charge, and if they think that one student is receiving just a little more attention than they are hurt too quick. What these students cannot be forced to comprehend is that these things are within themselves. They cannot be made to understand that it is the little self within which wants attention, and the more conscious this self is, the more attention it wants. The smaller is the true man or woman within. With the true student, it is different. The true student has learned to forget the self. To him or her, extra attention is undesirable, for he or she feels that others might be hurt by it. Such want only the truth. They listen attentively to what the teacher has to say, and even if the teacher were to forget to serve them, they would take it as a test, as a lesson, and would not feel hurt by it, because it is only the little self that is ever hurt and not the true man. It is these students who have forgotten the self and who come to the hall, not for personal attention, but for what they can learn, who make the masters. It is these who are willing to accept the crust of the bread, the glass of water, and the hard bed, who are the teachers of the people of the future, while those who must be constantly catered to are the slaves to themselves, and will continue to be slaves to others as long as they live. The hall does not desire these, and they will receive only the attention that littleness deserves, and in this way they can often be awakened. From this, it must not be understood that the student body at Beverly Hall moves about with long faces. The contrary is true. You cannot find a more contented or more happy or more harmonious assembly of people anywhere in the world than you will find at the hall during convocation time. Nor are innocent amusements forbidden, but are rather encouraged, since we believe in the Masonic rule: 8 hours for work, 8 hours for study and recreation, 8 hours for rest. On the other hand, students do not and should not come here because they think they will be catered to, because they imagine there is feasting, because they have the services of maids or valets. For if they do, they will be sadly disappointed. They should come and meet with us because of the feast of knowledge, the good things of the soul. And obtaining these things often means the denials of the pleasant things of the material, for these things can be had at home more easily than at the hall. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.